Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Face in the Crowd, episode 11 in double digits. Double digits last week, continuing double digits now. And this week is kind of juicy. We actually have stuff planned out to talk about today, unlike last week, which is good. We also have a new guest here, Charlie. Say hi.
Hello, I'm Charlie.
Perfect. So, I like having more people, so it's not just a back and forth discussion. Hopefully, that makes it somewhat more interesting. First thing we have,
start bringing some guests on. That would be fun.
hopefully, my sister really wants to be on, which I don't think that's a good idea, but we'll see.
Maybe it's something.
Maybe
you could get like more content. You could pop
That's
off
true.
on Reels. Yeah,
that's true. That's true. All right. So first thing we got here is this fiasco. Let's see. This fiasco here, the Trump and Zelensky meeting. This was an absolute nightmare. I feel like everyone seems to be pointing fingers at what went wrong here, and I think that it's quite an interesting thing. I feel like this is not something that is typically you're going to see publicized, just like completely out in the open when it comes to like politics. Which I think that this came as a shock to a lot of people to see these world leaders raise their voices and arguing with one another. So yeah. You guys got anything?
I'm thinking of stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
What's the full tweet say? What's the first part?
Full tweet. I basically just picked a random tweet just that had the video for this, but this is This is basically what the right has been saying, is that Zelensky was the one who essentially lashed out first. And then basically it's just pointing that Zelensky was the issue here, which, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that Trump and Vance's demeanor was the most professional, but I think that I feel like Zelensky has been a little bit privileged with how he was helped under the Biden administration, that a radical shift to the America First sort of ideology that Trump runs by, which is definitely not going to make him very happy. And it's definitely not making a lot of people on the left happy because they all have the Ukraine flag in their username. And they, for some reason, think this war is like the most important thing of all time, when I don't think it really is. My general opinion on this issue is that I don't like wars. I don't like people dying. At the same time, though, I'm not necessarily a fan of using a ton of money from U.S. taxpayers to fund a war overseas. Dare I say that? But there is a little bit of a selfish sort of perspective. Which, I mean, it's a very difficult moral issue because could, like, dropping out of the Russia-Ukraine war, could that help American citizens? I mean, potentially, if it betters the life, whatever that means, like less government spending, lower taxes, something like that. It gets a little bit tricky. I get that's kind of my perspective.
I guess my take on it would be like, first of all, it kind of sucks that this happens because, like, it's never great to see major world leaders get into an argument with each other, especially when one of those world leaders is Donald Trump, who has kind of the reputation of being a little bit of, I don't know, kind of an immature rage monster, and this definitely isn't helping that reputation. But at the same time, it sounds to me like Trump was probably pretty justified in how he acted here. It's just a tough situation with Ukraine too, because it's a war that's been raging on for like 3 years. Raging's a strong word even, but like Russia invaded Ukraine, and I understand why the United States is helping Ukraine, because again, Russia is not exactly the most friendly nation to the United States in the world. So you have kind of almost like a second Cold War situation where the United States is trying to prop up nations that are fighting against
Right.
Russia / the Soviet Union. But at the same time, you have that overarching question: is this really how we should be spending our money when we're trillions and trillions of dollars in debt? It's tough. There's just so much going on, and I think at the end of the day, everyone loses here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And like, of course, like I do think that Putin is not the good guy here. I think it's kind of funny. I've
Yeah.
seen some people online try to say that Trump is siding with Putin from his actions here or with other discussions with Zelensky, which I think is definitely not the case. I think Trump's goal is to reach peace as effectively as possible. And of course, to get peace, you're going to have to um, take in the voices of the two opposing sides and try to come to some sort of agreement deal, which of course is challenging. Which I think
Right.
that, like, I mean, to get peace, it's probably not going to make everybody happy. You just want to try to at least have both sides get something out of it, or else so that you try to reduce as many tensions as possible.
I also think, right, not a lot of progress has really been made on like the fronts either.
Right.
I mean, it's been forever since I've been in on this conversation with like Ukraine and Russia. But like even since the start of the war, not much movement has really been made besides I forget what it was. It was like a skirmish up north where Ukraine partially took territory from Russia, which is like, wow, that's impressive. But besides that, going so long, no progress. If anything, it's a war of attrition, and Russia has more numbers than you can count.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah, I know. I know, like some people are pointing out. I think Trump said something like Zelensky was gambling with World War III, because of Zelensky's seeming opposition to reaching a peace deal. It feels like Zelensky wants to continue the fighting to a certain extent, which I think is a little bit tricky. And obviously, Russia is a absolute superpower in the world and much more powerful than Ukraine is, which of course is probably why the U.S. backed Ukraine to begin with. So it's a very difficult situation. The tensions are going to be high no matter what you do. I just hope that somehow some agreement is made amongst all these different nations that that hopefully will be the best for the whole world, because World War III is not exactly something that anybody wants. And well, this specific conflict could potentially lead there.
I don't like people throwing around the word or phrase World War III because it gives the impression that like the next war will be insane. I mean, I guess you could say
Right.
it would be at that scale, but
Mhm. Yeah, I think that Trump does have a lot of like hyperbole in the words that he uses.
I
Just
wouldn't
to
even say it's just
be,
Trump though.
but well, you have to get politicians in
Yeah.
general. I guess that's fair, which is tricky, and I like it still just generally baffles me how this got spun into like somehow Trump is pro Putin, which I think is quite hilarious.
Mhm.
To think just because like Trump is willing to talk to Putin and try to reach some sort of arrangement doesn't necessarily make him pro Putin. Like Trump is a leader of a world superpower. Putin is a leader of a world superpower, and obviously, um, for the best of both countries, they're going to have relatively good relations, hopefully. I found let's see. I thought I had maybe one more tweet that I found. Right. Okay. What's interesting about this is that because of it seems that there's a lot of European nations who are in some ways trying to stick it to Trump by stepping up and actually putting their own resources towards fighting the war in Ukraine. I can't remember. I don't have the specific example.
How is that
Those-
sticking it to Trump, though? Isn't that
That's what
like
I'm saying.
exactly
That's
what should
basically
be happening?
what
Like,
Trump. That's literally what Trump wants. He wants America out of the war. He wants to focus on America first and let European countries, if they so choose, give their money to their continental neighbor.
These guys, though, have been like under like the United States' protection from Russia for so long, ever since it was still the Soviet Union, and without, the United States, then they're kind of having to fend against or fend for themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is kind of what I was talking about here. It's kind of interesting how like people are like, oh, we never really needed America. I've seen a little bit of that. I mean, this is Twitter, so like, I mean, how seriously can you take it? But this is kind of the perspective I think a lot of Americans have, is just like, oh, you're good without us. Okay, we'll just walk away then. Your problem now. Which, yeah, it's a crazy thing. And like this, like, keep in mind, this is like, we're still in the earliest months of Trump's administration here, which I think is going to be very, very interesting. Just to see how the next 4 years unfold. I mean, then yeah, Trump, like, I'd say that at the moment I'm probably like 90% in favor of what Trump has done, at least from what I've seen. I haven't looked at every specific like executive order he signed, but from what I've seen in like the news and on social media, I'm generally in favor. There is, however, one thing that I'm not a huge fan of, which is the next thing we have to talk about. Is there anything else you guys want to say on the Ukraine stuff?
It's sad too, historically Christian, although who can really say that about, Ukraine and Russia in the modern day where secularism is so dominant. It's very sad to see two historically Christian nations fighting it out.
That's a good point.
Yeah. That's interesting. And like one thing that I also think is unfortunate that I don't hear a lot of people talk about is that it seems as if there even is some mistreatment of like Russian citizens, innocent Russian citizens who are in some ways or another being punished due to the actions of their leader, which I think is unfair. Like, I think Russia, obviously, like, this is just a specific example. Russia was banned from the World Cube Association for a little bit, from hosting competitions for Rubik's Cube solving. I don't know if that was directly due to this particular issue or something else. Obviously, Russia's had like controversies in like the Olympics and stuff as well for going on a larger scale, which is tricky. I just think that's a little bit unfair to just assume or just to treat people for the actions of their leader, because not every action made by a leader is going to be approval by people who even voted for that leader.
Yeah. I know for certain that in the world of chess, like, Russian chess players cannot fly the Russian flag if they're playing in an event. Which is maybe like kind of a more acceptable compromise because they still technically can play if they're not like endorsing Russia as a nation, but there's still kind of that element of maybe persecuting the people who don't necessarily support the leader a little bit.
Right. All right. Anyways, though, the next topic is on Andrew Tate. This is such a stressful topic just because I have a strong dislike for Andrew Tate as a internet figure. I strongly dislike his ideology of a conservative caricature, hyper traditionalist. If that's even I wouldn't even hesitate to call it that. It's just complete barbarity to a certain extent. But essentially, what has happened is he has, from what I've seen, he's back in the United States. He was, I think, previously prevented from re-entering the United States due to his legal issues in some country. I can't remember what country. I don't know, whatever. But
it seems like it says that him and his brother have dual U.S. and UK citizenship, so it could be the UK he had trouble going into.
That's possible. But I believe that Trump had something to do to like lift a travel ban that he had. due to being. Let me make sure I'm not gonna say something wrong here. Let's see. So yeah, basically, Trump somehow played a role into getting Andrew Tate and Tristan back into the States after being basically being accused of human trafficking in some other country. I'll see if I can find it quickly here.
Romania, right?
Romania, yeah. He was charged with rape and sex trafficking in Romania, and Trump basically helped him. This one post here says escape those charges, which I mean, effectively, that is what's happening. Of course, those charges, to a certain extent, are like conspiratorial. There's a lot of people that think that they're just completely fake. And like it's just the Matrix. They'll use like the rhetoric like that to get him to like to silence his voice, silent the Tates, which I think is just complete like a complete distraction from it. They're trying so hard to avoid, and they know that like they have enough of a fan base that will defend them against basically any accusation, which is of course tragic. And well, let's just say this is not going along very well in the especially Christian side of American conservatism. Pretty much everybody is condemning this action by Trump, mostly because they see this as somewhat of an endorsement towards the Tates and what they have to say, which is certainly not representative of probably the majority of conservatism. It's probably going to be a small sect of conservatism, if any. Of course, I would hesitate to even call, I guess, even the broader red pill movement is. I hesitate to call them conservative. They're more conservative LARPers or conservative cherry pickers, where they choose the traditionalist conservative values that they like and then just ignore the others. Yeah, I've rambled for a bit there.
I mean, I'd agree with you right there, right? Their morality is so. I'm not going to pretend like I know anything about the Tates simply because they're so disgusting. I prefer not to think about them. But I would argue that their position or their views would fall outside of both liberalism and conservatism.
Right.
Mhm.
It's sort of it's like a radical hyper. What do you want to call it? Hyper materialism in a way.
Yeah.
Like I think that really is what the
Mhm.
Tates seem to focus on, is a lot of that material, worldly pleasure type of things, which is definitely not compatible with that of Christianity. To my knowledge, Andrew Tate is not too long ago converted to Islam, so he went from being a fake Christian to probably a fake Muslim too, just for the grift. Which I'm sure has nothing to do with his desire for polygamy or anything like that. I'm sure that's not right. But it's the thing. The worst part about this is that like I've seen a lot of the left on like social media try to act as if Tate is an accurate representation of conservatism and attacking conservatism through the lens of Tate without recognizing that he is far from it and generally disliked in the actual conservative group in the West, which of course, like the Republican Party is not the conservative party. It just happens to hold the majority of the conservative vote at the moment, and is obviously more conservative than Democrats are. Barely, as it seems like that. It feels like every election they sacrifice, or the right sacrifices more of the Christian ethics and morals for the sake of gaining votes, which sucks, but whatever.
Yeah, I
just gonna go
confess
on
I
a
know nothing about the Tates at all.
consider yourself lucky, I guess. Basically, so like there's literal footage of him essentially admitting to human trafficking, and people will still defend him. Like, not like oh yeah, I'm a human trafficker. I'm like no, it's
Right.
more like he's basically he's admitted to utilizing women for profit, essentially.
Mhm.
Which I mean that is effectively human trafficking. I don't care if it was
Yeah.
Yeah,
consensual or not.
that's
Like there, to
barbaric.
get to that particular
Yeah.
state, there's probably some manipulation going on there. Yeah, and like it's the sad thing is there's going to be people trying to defend this too, and like I mean he loves his Matrix rhetoric, um, which he has this like it's like his narrative that like somehow society like the entirety of society is against him and what he has to say, and so you have to escape the Matrix, like the movie The Matrix.
Yeah.
You got to recognize the reality or something, break free of the brainwashing, which of course like and that rhetoric's not exactly unique to him. I mean, there are people probably on both sides of the political aisle that that could use similar terminology to
Right.
coming to
Generally, I
terms.
think you see that language more on the right, but
Right,
yeah,
and the
it's
main reason
pretty
for
common.
that is just in the actual Matrix movie, you have the red
Mhm.
and the blue pills, and the red
Right.
pill is the one that is like you're waking up, you're discovering the truth or something like that.
Sometimes, though, when everybody is saying that you're wrong, you actually are wrong.
Right. And I am not excited for a Kanye Andrew Tate interview.
That's
Even
so
if that will be
stupid.
content gold. Um,
And I guess to kind of look at this from another perspective, if Trump really was involved in letting Tate back into the United States, that was a really like politically and morally tone deaf move on Trump's
right.
part.
Right. I mean,
Because
continue.
Tate is hated among conservatives, I think. Like, I don't know a ton about him, but that's the impression I've got from Christian conservatives, at least, that he's a fairly hated figure. So for Trump to be letting him back into the United States seems to me to be trying to pander to a conservative community that doesn't really exist.
Right. And I mean, like, it's pretty clear that Trump isn't completely in touch with the conservative base. I
Yeah.
mean, we saw that with appointing Paula White for
Mhm.
the whatever faith office, whatever you want to say. Who and obviously Paula White's very very controversial figure in the Christian community, being a prosperity preacher and all. And of course, and it's a little bit unfortunate. I feel like a lot of people don't quite realize how divided the Republican movement isn't between like because like you have like your like Christian conservatives, you have your anti-wokeists that don't actually fight for anything, they just don't like the radical progressivism, and then you have like your Democrat defectors like RFK
Yeah.
or Tulsi Gabbard that are just like oh yeah where like we don't really know what they're actually fighting for. They're just basically the anti-woke position as well, and like it's very very convoluted, and I
Mhm.
feel like a lot of people are starting to realize that. Um, but anyways, back to Tate. Generally speaking, I would say 90% of conservatives who touched on this seem to dislike this move. I've seen some say that it's fine to bring him back to the States as long as you don't promote him. I think the problem with that is that Trump signing an order to get him back, assuming that is what happened. I think that's what I like saw. Then that is in some way an endorsement of him. So I think that's a little bit of a challenge.
I feel like the only good thing that could come out of this is that Tate could be watched with a much more, what's the word, observant eye, considering what is it? Bucharest is like the capital of sex trafficking in like Europe
Right.
or something. I say that knowing, there's worse people who've gotten away with worse things in the States, cough, cough, Epstein. But I would hope the United States is more thorough.
Yeah, hopefully for sure.
Yeah.
Point.
And another thing is that like Tate is a very clear Trump supporter, as well, which of course a lot of people see this as an additional political move, and of course they're going to loop in all other Trump, not even Trump supporters, just Trump voters, in with what Andrew Tate says, which of course is just going to lead to more division and more straw manning and yada yada. It's just going to be great. Yeah, let me see if I can find. There was one picture that I think describes the situation well. I should have really saved all of these. I just didn't. Um, hmm. Let me see here. Here we go. So this is essentially kind of what is happening, it seems. For some reason, he's very well. I know exactly why he's popular with the young men. It's because he talks to them and at least and in some way motivates them.
Yeah.
Which I mean that's a problem in of itself. I mean, like I could talk a while about the feminization of the church being seen that's pushing some men away. But yeah, like yeah, so he's got like he really is just a materialistic narcissist, at least from what I've gathered. And like the thing is that like I've agreed with some of the things he says before. I just wish it wasn't him saying those things because the things that I disagree with him on, I disagree so much, so strongly that I wish I didn't agree with him on anything.
Mhm.
And, like, the thing is like he could, because he is, I don't necessarily want to call him a grifter, but he is very, very good at knowing what to say to garner a large audience, even if it's just based off rage bait, which he does a lot of.
I mean, the truth doesn't depend on people's quality to be true, right?
Right.
Because, like, the reason we dislike Tate is because he more often lies and his character is evil. Therefore, we
Right.
don't like him.
Right. And of course, like I've seen some people try to like call conservatives hypocrites for condemning Tate while supporting people like Trump and Elon, but I just think like, and I think that there's something to that argument. But like the thing is that like I don't know a single Christian conservative that genuinely likes the character of people like Trump, Elon, or Tate. I think all three of them have massive character flaws that don't exactly align with Christian values at all.
Yeah.
I mean, just because I voted for Trump does not mean that I enjoy everything about him. And I didn't exactly vote for him with a smile on my face. It's just that I happen to not enjoy the party that kills unborn babies and mutilates children. Forgive me if I'm a little bit crude there.
At least you're condemning the Spartans.
True.
Yeah.
That's what's important. Anyway, so see, we're at like 30 minutes here. So
Yeah, probably move on to the Pope.
we'll move on to the Pope. Yeah, this is something a little bit better, something that hopefully everyone can stand with. So obviously, Pope Francis has been quite sick as of late. I thought that I really liked this particular post. It's showing how Pope Francis is still willing to bless, to consider it a blessing to suffer, because I think that the topic of suffering is a tricky one inside the church, and of course outside the church is a common atheist argument against the character of God, the issue of suffering. But I'm glad that he's able to at least see a blessing in that. Now, obviously, none of us here are Catholic. But I don't think that has any grounds to like not try to support the Pope.
Right.
Um,
I feel like generally in Protestant circles, there's kind of this idea that like the Pope is bad or something. And I don't want to get too deeply into this topic tonight, but I think that in general, especially in the last couple centuries, the popes have largely been fairly morally upright individuals who have genuinely worked for the good of the church. And I don't think that condemning them just for being Catholic is very helpful.
right. Yeah, I'm honest. I kind of get annoyed with anyone that tries to claim another church that holds to the fundamentals of Christianity as like demonic or somehow heretical. I think that that's just generally unwise for furthering the church's movement. Of course, like you have like your radical sects like Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses that do disagree with some of those fundamental beliefs, and they're therefore not considered Christian by the vast majority of knowledgeable Christians.
Mm-hmm. Even like when you say, do atheist scholars ever separate Mormons from Christians on that basis alone, or will they generally group them just because hey they like Jesus?
That's a good question.
I've never really seen that distinction made. I think though, like they probably like obviously like all of their attacks against Christianity would probably also work as attacks against Mormonism, so there probably isn't not much of a need to separate them. But of course, like a lot of atheists don't understand a lot of things about Christian theology. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they and I mean like even like some like less knowledgeable or newer Christians might make the mistake of considering Mormons to be Christian or something like that. I've certainly seen it.
Yeah, but Christianity,
Mormonism is
like if like a Mormon says like, oh, I'm part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like a fairly like I guess like spiritually young Christian would probably hear that and just like, oh, they worship Jesus. They're my ally.
Yeah, but if they know about, if they learned anything about it, then they know that's wrong. And like, I would also add, Mormonism does not have much of a historical basis, where Christianity has a lot going for it, even from a skeptical point of view. I would think, but yeah.
But I mean, like I've seen, there seems to be quite a bit of support coming from all denominations regarding this issue, which I think is good. Like even you have like people like Redeem Zoomer who are promoting praying for Pope Francis. Obviously, Zoomer is a Presbyterian, so he's not Catholic either.
Presbyterian. Yeah.
Good old Zoomer and his usually good takes.
Sometimes good takes.
How stupid is he on Twitter? I hear he really can be.
He's a little trolly at times, yeah. As you do on Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, like, let's just listen to some of this crap right now. Like, he just sometimes just posts like whatever. Like, he's on here like a ton. He posts probably way too much. We did it, boys.
The whiplash you get from that, like, unite to pray for Pope Francis, and the previous post that's like non-Calvinist stupid is insane.
Right.
Wait.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, maybe this is a way to blow up on Twitter. You just post every 10 minutes. Then eventually something will get track, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's really good to see general church unity when you typically won't see that. It feels like when discussing Pope Francis right now and his illness, it's generally positive Christian unity, and then 5 seconds later, you'll have Protestants and Catholics at each other's necks over something stupid.
God.
But
We should probably talk about Catholicism at some point because I, of course, have thoughts. Not tonight.
we could do that for our next theology episode next week.
Yeah, that might be good.
Maybe we'll keep a note of that. But yeah, so obviously, I hope Pope Francis recovers and gets and is blessed with more years of his life. Obviously, he is a church leader, even if I'm not necessarily part of the church he's a leader of, but we are still part of the family of God, all united in Christ.
I do have a question for y'all. Do you think someone may take his place in his stead? Like he may retire or step down, if that's even possible for him as Pope?
I'm not.
That is possible for him to step down. There have been popes who have resigned or abdicated or something. As to the actual question, I think it's possible, but I don't expect it.
Okay. Because it's like, isn't that office like one that you're expected to fulfill for the rest of your life?
That is the expectation,
Sure it is,
yes.
yeah.
And the vast majority of times that is what happens.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Anyway, so we got like one more topic. This is probably like this somehow might be the most controversial one. So supposedly there was a study done on sex change surgeries and its impact on depression, and it basically proves that maybe it's not exactly a good thing. Of course, this is a Twitter post about the article, so I haven't read the actual article. So if something is a little bit wrong or misleading here, I apologize. But assuming these numbers are correct, it seems that perhaps affirming mental illness surgically does not seem to have the best of effect on that individual. And honestly, who would have thought? Surgically altering your body to fit a gender that you are not, it may have some unintended consequences.
Thank you, liberalism.
Thank you. Yeah. Gosh, it's actually, and like these are not like, these are very significant. Especially the males. 14% increase, slightly less for females, which is it's kind of interesting. Bit of a separation in that change of rate. Of course, this is a problem nonetheless. I mean, like even just having like 11% of people in a group that are depressed is a problem.
I feel those numbers feel like backwards, honestly, to me. Because we hear a lot about like the male loneliness epidemic in the modern world. So I feel like the initial rate of male depression would be higher, or that's what one would expect. Whereas I think one would generally
I guess I don't really know. Is this initial number specifically among trans-identifying individuals, or is this all men?
That's a good point.
I that's not clear to me here. So
depression rate, does that mean like of all men surveyed, or on average, like how likely is a man to feel this way?
I mean, this is like the issue with not actually reading the actual article.
Yeah.
Reading a Twitter snippet of it is just going to be missing information.
Let's spend 10 minutes reading.
Let's go. I mean, they sampled 100,000 patients, which of course does not mean they sampled every single. Like, doesn't necessarily mean they sampled everyone. That might have just been the selection that they chose from. But I think that these are statistically significant changes pretty clearly. So they're probably onto something here, unless it's a biased study, Oxford Journal of Sexual Medicine, it doesn't seem immediately biased to me.
Biased.
That is a major school, though.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if a major school is bought out.
Right, but like I feel like if it would be, it'd be like a left-leaning bias, which this would not exactly support.
And Oxford is a British university, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And Britain is like further down the left-leaning hole than America is. Perhaps
In some
even
ways.
Canada,
Yeah.
more than Canada. I'm making claims without knowing this for sure, so I should probably be quiet.
Yeah, I am obviously there's going to be suspicions with particular studies. There's no community notes on this, so that at least means that there's a decent chance that this is correct information. Of course, I think that I would like a little bit more information to correctly interpret the statistics given.
I'm trying to get to the study now, but I'm having to do like the longest capture test I've ever seen.
Oh, that's great.
I've got to be on like the 15th. Click the motorcycle. Maybe
I think that might just be
Are you a robot? Do you act like a robot?
I'm beginning to doubt my own humanity.
Do you think you're a robot?
I don't
You
know.
might want to become a robot then.
I mean, you're like what, a theology student introvert? I mean, that's not far off.
I don't know. Robots don't like philosophy. I clicked
Yeah,
the darn
I'm probably close to
motorcycle
that.
already.
I bet they'd like the philosophy of Soma, though. Okay, Tyler liked that one. At least he did.
Okay, here
Yeah.
we go. I got
Yeah.
through the thing.
You wanna share it
it?
if you can?
Yeah, I think this is it.
Okay.
I'll throw the link in the chat.
Or you're not just gonna share your screen, or?
Oh, share my screen? Yeah, I can do that too.
I'll look at it on my end too. Journal of Sexual Medicine. Oh, this is like a like a whole peer-reviewed study.
Oh boy, yeah. You want to zoom in, then.
Yeah.
Okay, that should
I
be
don't know
fine.
if I can read the whole article here.
Oh, great.
Well, I don't know if I can
Get it?
read.
Does it at least have like a?
Maybe I can get this. Let me try and get this through the college library.
Yeah, that could work. Gosh, I wish I had a second monitor. Like, ever since I got my PC, I've been stuck with one, and it kind of sucks.
I don't think I can actually get this article.
Okay, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Anyway,
Of course, we have Stone Tosser's comic to describe this. I love Stone Tossers. Very great. Of course, medical industry, like this could, for all we know, the pushing of the alphabet ideology could just be a scheme to get rich.
Eventually.
That would be crazy.
And I mean, like, who would have thought gender affirming surgery doesn't fix mental illness? That's like
Crazy.
It's like mental illness is separate from physical illness, and well, in some ways, it is true that there is a correlation between the two, but
It's almost like mutilating your body doesn't help your mental state, though.
Yeah.
right. That's kind of strange how that happens, and of course, it's not exactly reversible either. So now your whole life is going to suck. So. And there's a lot of people on the right who are defending transitional surgeries for adults.
Mm-hmm.
They just have a problem with the kids, which of course that's good. Right. Like, let's start there, sure.
Yeah,
but like, let's not act like it's just all of a sudden okay the moment you turn 18.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. See, that's basically everything we have, right?
I think so, and it's getting a little late too.
It is, yeah. Almost 11, 45 minutes. That's pretty good. That's what else is really had. Oh, the Shrek stuff. the Shrek
Oh yeah.
part. Oh no, I don't
I
want
was
to talk
talking
about
about-
that right now. But we might have
Oh.
another Sonic situation on our hands here.
Yes, let's talk about all these controversial world events, but Shrek, oh no, that's a little too far.
That's a little
Too far.
bit-
Shrek, oh, do
No,
not
I'm
talk
just
about my
tired.
beloved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just tired. Anyways,
I still haven't
Good.
seen the first Shrek movie.
okay, that's great. That's,
I mean, I'm a
That's very
theology major. I sit in my room and think
You
about
haven't thought of the theology
Platonic
of Shrek?
philosophy. Well, no, I have not.
I don't know. Shrek's not dark enough. Not like Sicario, you know. Not like those
Mhm.
movies that have a interesting meta narrative on the topic of morality.
Yeah.
He could be in Sicario, you just don't know.
Shrek is in Sicario. Got
Shrek in
Sicario
Sicario,
3
sure.
featuring Shrek.
Yeah.
I think they aren't they. I think they are making like a Sicario 3 actually.
That's great.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott really is on top of those sequels now for some reason.
Mhm.
Wait, Sicario was Ridley Scott, right?
We got this take of the week.
No,
right
it
here.
was the guy who did Dune,
Denis
Villain
Villeneuve.
of You or whoever.
Okay.
Yeah,
Pretty
what
sure it's
Tyler
pronounced
just
Denis
said.
Villeneuve. I have no idea if that's right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. This this tweet went super viral because of how dumb it is.
That is
Just
very
tons
dumb.
of clatter, you know.
Whatever
Wow.
happened to the guy who said that, he burned to death.
He got ratioed to the moon on Twitter.
Yeah.
Don't misuse Lord of the Rings quotes like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's get this over with here. Let's just end it now.
Okay.
If you made it this long, thanks for watching. We'll see y'all in episode 12.
See you